Hello out there. If you're starting up. Good evening, everyone. This will be a bit of an experimental stream. I don't know if Steven's going to make it tonight or not. It was delayed by about 10 minutes, a little overrun. Dismiss. I'll just play with the setting to see if Steven gets here. If not, then I'll talk about what I want to talk about. Suppose there's a mask for this. So, if everyone's out there listening, Grumpier, You're Not So Old Men is the idea is going to be guys my age who are middle aged talking about a lot of the stuff in media, maybe a little politics thrown in, with, how do I put it, with the perspective of having lived through a lot of the last 20, 30 years. Because I noticed on some streams we talk to some younger folk that they don't necessarily, like, someone goes, well, I've never seen, the Transformers movie in the 80s or whatever, or Highlander. And then a lot of the perspective when someone tries to remake this stuff gets lost. So, give Steven one more time. Poke. I'm poking Steven on. So the first thing I'll talk about, since we're waiting, and if Steven don't come on, or if Mike don't come on, I'll do just me talking about stuff. I guess my first topic that I wanted to talk about is where was it? I saved it up. So let me call this up here: Best Hammer Horror Films. This is was going to be a secondary topic, but turned into a primary since Steven isn't here. So. Oh, I forgot. Lovely. You got to use Firefox because there we go. So over on MovieWeb, this article came up. I've watched a lot of horror films over the years, and of course the Hammer films. So when I saw this list, I was like, okay, with this list, a lot of times when you see these lists by people, they don't. How do I put it? They just don't come up. Then that's not very good, So let us look at it. We're gonna go right to the bottom. We're gonna go right to the bottom of the list. All right. What do they have as number one? Well, okay. Right now, I know that this list is done by someone who's actually seen these movies. Because Horror of Dracula, not only is it the best Dracula film, it is the best Hammer film. There are others that are close, but Christopher Lee's performance as Dracula in Horror of Dracula, or I believe is one of the names. It had several others because of international release stuff like that. It is the best. What do they have as number two? The Curse of Frankenstein. Again, any Christopher Lee Frankenstein film is great, so I don't have a problem with that. Curse of the Werewolf, another good one. Mummy, good. Plague of Zombies, Abominable Snowman. Okay, so here we get to number 7. This is one of my favorite horror films of all time, The Devil Rides Out. I probably saw it when I was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, and it's very formative for how I like all sorts of horror stuff. It's basically it's an urban fantasy film for all practical purposes, like Dresden Files or whatever, with that horror element. Christopher Lee is great as the main character, and it's probably my second favorite Hammer horror film after. So this list on best Hammer horror films on Moriflix, I will link it below. Okay, since looks like I'm going it alone, what else? I could call up 1 or 2 other things for you. I'll leave Firefox on the side here for now in case I need it again, which I will. Now, I saw this one here, so let's another article I was going to do a video about this, but I said let me just talk about it live. Over on Collider. I've been very black-pilled on the Marvel Universe, okay? On Disney in general. And it was Obi-Wan that did it. You know, that trash fest experience. You know, it just ruined anything Marvel. Anything that came out of Disney just ruined it for me. I'm sharing this out now, so I don't want to. Okay. I guess I'm going to go with the notion that I'm going to be on alone. So, and then I saw the trailer for this pop out, which is Ryan Reynolds with Hugh Jackman, basically. How should I put it? Advertising for Deadpool 3, and it was. It was. I watched it. I said, "No, are they really going to let him do a Deadpool movie? I mean, is Kevin fucking Feige gonna ruin it, or Kathleen fucking Kennedy gonna ruin it?" And the reason I trust that this movie, of all the Disney crap coming out, that this movie will be okay, is twofold. Ryan Reynolds loves the Deadpool character, and knows that we the fans backed his ass when he said that the original appearance of Deadpool in that Weapon X film was a horror show. We all know how the director of that film hated the Deadpool character. And Ryan Reynolds basically, on his own merit, his own work effort, got Deadpool done and was a great movie. And Deadpool 2 was really good. So the fact that he's committed to that and he understands that the fans backed him, I think that's why this Deadpool 3 will be a good movie. Okay? Oh, I might be getting that guest on. So anyway, we'll keep talking about Deadpool. So I have real hope that this film could be done well. Okay. Now, forgive the slow start up here, guys. We should be seeing someone soon. So we'll go on to the next one while we wait. And we'll do the last one. Hopefully we'll get... This is one I wanted to talk about with Steven. So... Put a little tab in here. So, many, many years ago... there was a movie called Scanners. It was from, I want to say it was in the late 80s or early 90s. And I watched it because someone told me it was very loosely derived from an A.E. Van Vogt book called Slan. And you there, Stephen? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Now let's see if they can hear you online. Well, we're only two listening. I'm going to put the audio up and see if I can hear you when you pop in. I'm trying to do this through Discord, so I really don't want to pay for Streamlabs, especially with all the audio problems, people reporting on it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna lower volume on my end for a second, just so I can hear you, and put the volume on the YouTube. Okay, you're popped in. Just start talking, and we'll see if it comes in 8 seconds later or whatever. Introduce yourself.
Just here to talk. I'm talking. I'm checking my microphone system. I see that there are Godzilla toys right near your face, potentially poking you in the ear.
Oh, you can see my camera. Oh yeah, this is Mecha Godzilla.
Yep.
Yeah.
How's that looking?
Problem is, let me see if I can. Let me see if I can get it on my phone. You can't always tell when you do it on a browser if the audio is working. I know the Discord audio works on the Windows side. On the Linux, I can hear myself. I can hear you. You're coming through. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. The D&D session, which for the first 3 weeks ended before 10 o'clock, today ran to 11:10. It was just, when you never know, right? So,
Gotcha.
everyone, my guest is here now. This is Stephen Ransom. You've seen him on probably 1,000,001 people's podcast and streams for the past year or so. You know. You know what? You're the official guest, Stephen. That's your designation. You are the official guest. If you ever make your own, you should call it the official guest podcast or something.
Nice.
But and now give us now that we know the audio is working, just introduce yourself to the audience. Give yourself a little premise of, either if you have your own channel. I don't think you do. You do your own, but.
Yeah, I don't have an active channel. Of course, I've got a regular channel on YouTube, just because that's how the devices work. But I've been appearing on a couple of gentlemanly podcasts with PJ Maybe, Roman of the Empire, and John the Blue Collar. Over the course of the week, I've been getting into some other panels. Captain Infinity, Cockney Spock, and a couple other guys that I've been doing way too much streaming for my own health. But yeah, mostly getting into pop culture, movie talk, but also specifics about film analysis and methods of film analysis. Kind of dig deep.
Okay. I boosted your audio a little bit just so I could. We'll see how.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Again, on the Windows side, I'd be 100% confident of the settings. The Linux, we're just going to play around with this and see how it works. Let me also record this so I can play it back and listen to it without going crazy with the web.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So while I was waiting for you, I was just going over some video, some news type of stuff. Have you ever heard of Scanners?
Yes.
Okay, so do you know who A.E. Van Vogt is?
Yes, I do actually.
The Weapon Stops of Isha. For people who don't, that's his most famous work. Which anyone who favors their Second Amendment rights should read. I probably should do a review on that one. Just people need to read it. But
The one I read, I think, is the one with the telepaths.
That's Slan, and that's what I'm about to talk about. So I when I was like 8 years old, my uncle gave me probably 500 or 600 sci-fi paperbacks because he moved in with my aunt, who also had they gave me all the duplicates basically, and he must have had 30 books by Voight, right? And so I read them all, or most of them, and then maybe in the '90s, this movie Scanners came out, and there's a lot of like B and C grade sci-fi that you kind of like, you're like, doesn't sound too good. Then someone told me, no, Matt, you got to watch this. They stole the entire plot of Slant after this movie.
Really?
Because the general plot is that the telepaths in Slant are hunted by the government because they have these telepathic powers that can take people over and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You remember?
Yeah. I knew basically what it was. I had never even seen it, so it's
Yeah.
really hard to say.
Well, it turns out it's actually it's one of the better B grade movies you'll ever see.
Okay.
The sequel, Michael Ironside stars in it. He's the villain. And the sequels are kind of meh, but now the reason I'm bringing it up and the reason it applies to Grumpier, Not So Old Men is like anything else they're doing, they're remaking it. So,
Of course.
yeah. So when you do these remakes, and I'm like, on one hand, I would love to see a big budget adaptation of this film, because it really it would, if nothing else, like when they did that stupid Wicker Man remake, it pointed out the original classic. You know what I mean? But nowadays, they're gonna wokeify this crap, like beyond belief, and. I mean, what are your fandoms? What have they destroyed with wokeification?
Well, across the board, I don't have any fandoms left really. There's nothing really. The only thing I have is, bacon and eggs, chewing the fat kind of conversation. That's about it.
Well, that bacon's gonna be bug bacon, so there's the wokeification there.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, but do you know what else? They destroyed another franchise starting 2 weeks ago. Do you know what that one was? You know who Anne Rice is?
Which one?
Do you know who Anne Rice is?
Oh, yes, I just saw that they started Interview with the Vampires.
So I said, okay, I know this is going to be horrible. I said to him 15 times, I said, you know what, though? Even though I haven't read her books in 10 years, I love the first 5 vampire books. I love Ramses the Damned. I love the couple other books she wrote. I'm going to give this, I'm just going to look and see, right? So I did a live stream, so my reaction would be like genuine. I couldn't make it 26 minutes into this show. Now, have you ever read Interview with a Vampire?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Recently, actually.
So
just reread the original trilogy.
yeah. So
Quadrilogy.
yeah.
Right? Where does it go?
Well, there's the first 5 books which kind of relate to each other, which is Interview, Vampire Lestat, Queen of the Damned, The Tale of the Body Thief, which is probably my favorite of the books Lestat's in, and Memnoch the Devil, right? And then there's the next 5 which feature Lestat in various adventures, and the 8th one is the best of those 5, Blackwater Farm or something like that. It's very similar to the name of an Opeth song. That's why I remember it.
Yeah, I
but
never got that far into it.
yeah, and my favorite book, by all of her stuff takes place in the same metaverse, so to speak. She wrote a book called Ramses the Damned, which is about another type of immortality and the price of it, which I really loved. But anyway,
Does that go back to the Egyptian time period?
literally Ramses the Pharaoh. Yes,
Yeah.
he's trying to do the right thing for his people, and he gets an alchemist who had a formula who makes it so crops, like if you feed it to living things, they grow faster, right? So he plants a bunch of crops, and I don't remember the exact premise of it, but the crops grow so much they start eating everything, like the way plants absorb stuff, and so he has to bury them under the river so they don't have enough oxygen to grow. That's how he gets rid of them. But conversely, he gets punished, I think if I remember correctly, by having to take the form of himself and then being mummified. And then he gets woken up.
Where they explain where his vampirism comes from.
Well, no, Ramses is not a vampire. He's immortal in a different way. Okay, but it's fascinating for me because she always finds a price for her immortality in any of the ones she brings it into. There's no clean immortality about it. Like in the Interview with a Vampire, the price of immortality is that they become supernatural predators. Everything I remember people were trying to ask back in the day, so to speak, that she had a large percentage of I guess LGBTQ fans, right, who kept seeing all this homosexuality, and she's like, no, They're predators. The reproductive act of biting, which can reproduce them, is also the consumptive act. You shouldn't be romanticizing that. You know what I mean? They're predators. You know, it's inspired. It literally, the Vampire Chronicles is inspired by cancer. You know, so, and people didn't get that, right? But anyway, to get back to how they destroyed, and I mean completely destroyed the book. And so, for people who've never read it, the first one, Interview with a Vampire, is from the perspective of Louis. Okay, and it's Louis. He meets slash kidnaps a reporter who's only called the Boy for most of the book, whose name is David Malloy. He shows up in later books. Okay, and it's an interview with a vampire, literally. And Louis goes on and recounts his life, right? So Louis was born in like the 17th century and became a vampire in the early 18th century. He had a plantation. I think he was a slave owner. He's a white guy and so forth, right? So there was a theme of slavery in there and all that, right? Well, guess what? You know what the Interview with a Vampire show did? Oh, God. So it's a sequel to the book Interview with a Vampire. It's not anything to do with the actual book. Louis finds the boy, David Malloy, 50 years later and comes up to him and says, you know, all the stuff I told you back then was a lie. I'm not really a white guy. I'm a black guy who was born in 1910. And I'm gay. But I was in the closet for the first till I met Lestat. That's basically the premise of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was just checking to see. I'm like, there's no way she would allow this to happen.
She's dead.
Alive, and she's not.
Yeah.
Anne Rice is no longer with
No,
us.
our son controls all this, and I don't know if our son. I won't read anything our son wrote because I had a feeling from early stuff that he's not going to respect our work, you know. But it's like, I mean, you that's the thing. Like we've lived through so much. You're around my age. We're middle-aged guys, you know. And I thought I saw this coming with the new Battlestar Galactica in like what was it 2003 or so. You remember how that was a deconstruction of Battlestar Galactica? How all the heroes were not bad guys. You remember that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I saw this coming with the only thing about Battlestar Galactica I love is the first episode of it. To me, is the best TV show, single episode of all time, 33. But the premise of the show, with all your heroes being grimdark and all, total antithesis of the real Battlestar Galactica. And I told everyone this is going to be a trend. I wasn't even anticipating the communist aspect of it, you know what I mean? And I was like, this is going to be a trend. They're going to destroy every single thing we loved. And 20 years later, they're still doing it. You know?
Predicted here, kids.
Yeah. But, so when in your perspective, like what franchises have you seen? Like, I mean, we all know Star Wars and Doctor Who and all that. But like, which, I just mentioned some of the lesser talked about ones like Battlestar Galactica and the Vampire Chronicles. You know, what have you seen that people haven't talked about that's been destroyed by this wokification?
Let's see now. What have they really gotten into? It's really kind of hard to say because I stopped really listening to the whole conversation.
You're blackpilled. You've been blackpilled on a lot of it.
I blanked out on a lot of it because
Yeah.
it did start trending, and it was mostly around like 2015 that it really started picking up speed.
Yeah, I think
Conversation was just.
Yep, that's when I think they thought they could make money off of it. That all these woke people would buy their shit. You know?
Yeah. They thought they were catering to a much larger audience than actually showed up at the box office, which is crazy.
Yeah. You know, and then have you ever read any of the Dragon Riders books? Dragon Riders of Pern?
Never really got into much fantasy reading. I've been mostly adventure stories and sci-fi.
Well, the Anne Rice's Dragon Rider books are actually science fiction.
Okay.
People don't know that, but like if you just glance at it, but it actually takes place. This isn't a spoiler because the actual forward to the book explains this, people. So you know what good science fiction going in. Some people like to say, "No, you're spoiling it." You know, basically, humanity is expanding. I won't say why, but they're expanding throughout the galaxy for reasons, and that what happens is they send out these explorers who catalog each planet, and then colonies go there. Their FTL method is basically like this, they have to go to sleep for 20 years, type of hibernate type of thing, and and it's very slow, and they don't really have FTL. They have like relativistic speed, right? So they set out for Pern, which is Ruckbat something. It's, the star is Ruckbat, and they get there, and it's a paradisical planet. You know, it doesn't have a lot of metal, but the people, they want to make a mostly agricultural community, and just keep enough technology for medicine and things and communications, but get back to the land, like kind of homestead it. You know, so they get there, and they find out something happens. There's a rogue planet that goes through the solar system at an odd orbit, and it's like it's a 250 or so year orbit. And when it rolls around, it starts casting off these pods that are life forms that are sort of like super viruses that consume. They consume until they get big enough to consume themselves, and everything in the solar system gets bathed in these things. And on Pern, this stuff hits, and anything that's organic, like carbon based, it just eats until it consumes itself, basically, you know. And the planets develop defenses against it, but human beings don't have any, so it pretty much destroys their society. But they use the last of their technology to breed these local fire lizards, which are small dragonettes, to breed them big enough to, you know, because they're losing their tech, to be able to have the flying dragons who could breathe fire and burn the thread and all that, you know, to keeping it simple. And then over time, since they were didn't know, they lose their technology, and the first book takes place about 4,000 or 5,000 years later, when they're sort of beginning to recover a bit from, you know, the society is beginning to advance beyond the medieval age finally again, and that's the first Dragon Riders book. But it's, you know, it's really, especially once you get to the second book. Like the first book is just you it's character based. If you like the characters, you'll like the book. From the second through like the fifth or sixth book, the setting is when she really gets into it. But it's science fiction. And there's no, you know what I mean? It's just straight sci-fi if you ever want to read it. But the point I'm bringing up is, guess what they're going to wokeify? The series of Hidden Development. And given some of the sexual issues that she explored in the show, which in some sense she was criticized for, because to put it bluntly to the people out there, the humans who bond with the dragons get tied into their mating cycle. So when the dragon mates with someone, the human gets an overwhelming urge to mate with someone as well, right? So it can be a little rapey the way they describe it, but it's part of the consequence of psychically bonding with a dragon. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And that's what sci-fi is for, to explore those concepts and say, how would this really work? You know, no free lunch, right? Yeah. You know, which the best sci-fi has, the best, you know, like, but then you look at, that's another thing all this woke stuff is missing, Stephen. Maybe you probably see the same stuff. They write, when they wokeify a lot of these settings in science fiction movies and stuff now, they eliminate the consequences. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like in woke Star Trek, I couldn't stand Picard. Tried one episode of it, was garbage. I made it maybe 25 minutes into, no, I made it far enough into Discovery till I realized the bait and switch with Michelle Yeoh. Because I watched that show for her. I knew it was going to be horrible. I said, Michelle Yeoh, who played the original captain, the Hong Kong actress. So I said, I'll watch it for her. And then I was like, once I realized it was bait and switching, I was like, nope, can't do it. Just can't do it, you know? And but when you watch those shows, there's no consequences like in that Star Trek. They just get away with whatever they want. The good guys, you know, no price. No one. If anyone dies, they just resurrect them with like time travel or stuff like that.
Yeah, I started to get into the Foundation live action that they did, and that was deeply disappointing. I'm like, I don't recognize this as Foundation. It's Foundation in name only. I don't know what this universe is you're talking about here. I don't recognize any of the characters. The world doesn't look recognizable either. You've taken a brand new interpretation and basically just slapped your cover on the name of the book. It's
I had that
focused on the mystery or the exploration of the mystery. It's basically focused on whatever the heck they wanted to. These three kings that were clones of each other, and it was just like,
that's not none of that's in any of the Foundation books.
It's part of the Foundation expanded collection, So I've been told.
No. I know what you mean. Like there's other stories and books he wrote that relate to it. I get that, but like to me, when I first heard about this series, I thought they were going to do Prelude to Foundation, the book where he explained Harry Seldon how he developed psychohistory. You know,
Yep. Yep.
and it wasn't that. I tried to watch it. It wasn't. You know.
Yeah, I think they flipped a few of the genders on some of the main characters and changed their names up, and I just didn't recognize it. I remember it being this very interesting, almost like the Andromeda series, the Gene Roddenberry.
Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda with
series.
Kevin Sorbo. Yeah.
Yeah, where they're trying to resurrect a lost empire, which is basically the premise of Foundation. They're going to try and hyperdrive on how fast the empire comes back on
Yeah.
its feet.
Well, they were gonna make the premise. If I remember, it's been a while since I read his books. The premise was they knew that the empire, the Galactic Empire, was collapsing, and so someone made a project when they discovered this guy Harry Seldon had this psychohistory that can predict the future in broad generalities theoretically, and now the original series and short stories. That was all in the past. It started with the Foundation, which was a secret organization that was controlling history, right? But so and then not to belabor to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it for too many people, but none of this show is none of that.
Yeah. I mean, the books have this generational fiber that they're watching, where you see one character evolve into a setting, and then that setting in the next couple of chapters evolves into a time jump, and we're suddenly tracking a whole bunch of other new characters that are trying to push the story forward. But it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Look, I grew up on anime. I grew up on long-form television series that took itself seriously. And what I saw was not taking itself very seriously. It just seemed all over the place. It was very muddy. The production design, as usual, was gorgeous. I mean, we see production design that's absolutely beautiful all the time now. Where what is it? Raised by Wolves was an excellent concept of what I'm talking about. Beautiful production design. 2 robots on this planet are raising human children, almost to start civilization on their own. And then it keeps expanding out. You find out that there's this war, and that these robots were involved in this war, and that's where we lost the human race and lost the war on Earth or something. The production design was gorgeous.
Yeah.
The whole time through.
Yeah, there's a lot of actual. When I was getting to reading a lot of ebooks, there's a whole bunch of military sci-fi series with that premise, by the way. That like robots take over and humans have to like go into hiding somewhere in the galaxy to survive the initial onslaught and stuff. It's a fascinating concept, that whole area there. So.
Yeah, you could almost say that the Trigun universe is similar to that as well. That we don't really know what happened, but you can kind of guess that Earth might have been lost because of whatever power and technology they had at their disposal, and we're looking at the wretched refuse of that.
One of my favorite series, and I actually got into trouble as a kid. The author's name is Harry Harrison. You probably heard of him for sure.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's a classic sci-fi author, and he wrote a couple of different book series, but I believe one is called the Stainless Steel Rat series, and it's kind of like a dark humor series, and the premise is that society needs organized crime to actually work. That if you don't have organized crime, the police will basically get lazy. And
you know what? That might not be too far off.
Yeah, and the first book was called A Stainless Steel Rat is Born, right? And I wanted to do, and it's a great science fiction book, And I told my teacher, she said, you have to have your book reports. I was type of kid, I would read 5 or 6 books a week. So, and I said, let me do this one, it's a science fiction book. And she's like, no. And she yelled at me in front of the class. And later on, after she yelled, I'm like, Mrs. Breyer, this is an award-winning science fiction author who probably makes more in a year from writing than you do in your whole career. I told her when I was in 8th grade. you know. But one of the funny things about it, the reason you reminded me of it is, Earth. It takes place so far in the future. Like they have ridiculous level of super technology that's practical, like nano everything tech, and
Right.
Earth. He goes. Slippery Jim DeGriz is the main character, and he goes, "Yeah, humans are from a planet used to be called something like Dirt or Earth or something like that, but no one knows where it is." He just casually drops. He's called Dirt or Earth. And then later his wife goes, "Who would name their planet after what we walk on?"
Words.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
that's a modern dictionary problem.
yeah, or in Dune, thank God Villeneuve was smart with these movies. Like Dune takes place about 30,000 years in the future from 1979. Okay,
Right.
and the Earth is a myth. Like no one even knows if it really existed in Dune. It's mentioned in some of the side stories, you know. But I remember, humanity has been bred by robots. That's why the Butlerian Jihad happened. For anyone listening who doesn't know, you know. Oh my. Okay.
Yeah.
So Mike is giving me some input. Your audio is not being captured in OBS, so that's what my problem is there. So how do I capture? Oh, you know what? Try this. I've turned my desktop audio unmuted it, and let's see if it grabs you when you talk.
Ah,
Yeah, there's so many like complicated ways with this stuff. Okay, Mike, I'm capturing his audio like through the desktop audio. Let's see if that works. If not, I'll have to
I
play with
see.
the settings. You know, play with the settings here. Well, the other thing I could do.
Ah.
Yeah, there's so many like complicated ways with this
In the meantime, let me chatter from Mike. I'm chattering right now, Mike. Give him the heads up that I'm chattering. Can we hear me on that side? And how does it sound? How's the audio reception?
And then, hopefully let us know. But I could see it. I could see it inputting now. The question is whether it's going to grab it. You know.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm
Whatever.
waiting
You
for.
guys are magicians as far as I'm concerned. Some of this tech is so far beyond me.
Well, the thing is, I don't want to. I mean, look. Uh, I don't want to. How do you put it? I mean, I'm not. I'm not that I'm poor or whatever. But I don't want to throw money at.
StreamYards?
Yeah, at all these streaming places, and then like, you know, if I can make this work with, because I'm not a big streamer. If I were a big streamer with like thousands of people listening or whatever, I'd go professional. I'd work it all out, right? But for me doing this as a hobby, you can't keep dumping money into stuff. You got to be sane about it, Now if
Right.
this gets to the
Right.
point where I'm getting maybe I have like a subscribe star and get a couple $100 a month, then then I can let that pay for it, the hobby pay for itself type of thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah. So hopefully when I listen back to this and I just made some changes, and if it gets louder at the audio, yeah. So
Yeah, we're developing a workaround.
yeah.
Let's call it that.
Yeah.
It is my understanding though that the free package can handle up to 6 people if you've got the equipment to support it.
Oh,
And that's their free package.
Oh, the equipment's not a problem.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's what I'm assuming.
So Mike is giving us tips now. Let me jack my microphone up.
Yeah, and I'm working with a Bose headset as my microphone. It's been doing me fine in most of the streaming that I've been doing so far. It all sounds good on my end.
Yeah, so I'm just watching the I don't know if you've ever seen OBS play. It has these like bars at the bottom tell you if you're spiking too much or whatever.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, no, I'm not familiar.
Yeah. So maybe it's for next week's. You don't have to necessarily be on it if you want. That's cool.
Right. We'll stay in touch.
Yeah. For next week, I'll try with the free StreamYard and see if we can get that working successfully. But I just can't. Like I said, I just did my bankruptcy. That's clear. My income is good, and I want to spend money on my hobbies and enjoyment now, as well as stuff I have to do for education. But I don't want to just throw money at programs and whatever that I'm not like get a year-long subscription to something that I'm going to use never.
Right. Right.
At my age, you can't do stupid shit like that. It's like,
I don't understand how any of these streaming companies expect to find an audience. It was at one point that we were paying $100 or so for one cable package, and now there's God, how many streaming packages, and they're all like almost $10, $12 or something like that now for a month. How is anybody supposed to afford this?
Conversely, they're very cheap to put together. I mean, I have a setup like I use a setup called Plex Media Server, right? And I have like thousands of between me and my relatives and my DVR. I scanned in thousands of videos and Blu-rays and TV shows and all that. And me and my relatives and a couple friends, we all watch off my server. I mean, now it would be illegal for me to say make my own. I call it Matflix, but they would go after me legally if I was to advertise that, right? But
Right.
with just me by myself, I'd set up my own streaming service. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
they're ridiculously easy to set up, and there's probably hundreds of them out there. Like people don't know about this one, but there's a here. I'll put it on the screen so you can see it. I don't know if you're watching through YouTube or whatever. I don't want to double share it, so and you can't.
Yeah, no, I'm watching through Discord. I see your face. I haven't even brought up the YouTube. I should probably bring that up to see.
I'm gonna change. So I'm gonna get rid of the way I'm sharing the web browser now, and I'm gonna share it through Discord, right? So,
Okay.
so let me open up a Firefox. And on the Linux side, I use Firefox for stuff because it has trouble with hardware accelerated web browsers sharing in any capacity, right? So, where are we? Share my screen. Mozilla Firefox. Go live. Can you see it now?
I see a button that I can push to watch the stream. Ah, there it is. Yeah, I see Firefox.
So that's
your
Firefox.
Screen.
Now, are we seeing it live? Yep, there it is. So let me rearrange this so people can see this a little better. Now, eventually, I'll learn how to move people around if I use Discord for this stuff. There's a way to rearrange things, and I know Mike is a master of that. But what I'm pointing at is this. So a lot of people don't know about this, for example. Comment, there it is. This is basically free science fiction online.
Oh. I'm at TV.
Yep, they have an app. They have a schedule. You can some stuff they play stuff like you know, this is if you ever by the way anyone who's never seen Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, it's surprisingly good. Surprisingly good. Okay.
Yeah, it's right up there with Buffy, which is on the same panel.
Like
so,
when I watched this years ago, I was like, this is gonna be bad. Like this is gonna be like enjoyably bad. And I was like, holy crap, this is good. Like this just
and the book is even better.
Yeah. And you know, so and they'll say watch next, and when it's on next on Saturday, October 8th, 9 p.m. So I mean, if you tune in on their app, you can watch that, right? But they do have stuff that you can watch live, like stream live as well. But and then there's a ton, and I mean a ton of these sort of indie streaming channels out and whatnot out there that they get their small budget and they put it together, and you could enjoy stuff like this. So the amount of streams and all that are out there doesn't surprise me because it's a very how do you put it, low overhead type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, but then again, I mean, I don't know. Do you know anything about computers?
A bit.
You know what an Amiga is?
No, you're gonna lose me pretty fast when it
Commodore,
comes to tech.
You heard of Commodore, right? The Commodore computers, the old Commodore computers. So an Amiga was Commodore's high-level / professional rig. All right. So back before the year 2000, basically, every TV network and their mother ran on Amigas. Okay, it was so prevalent that like we'd be sitting around at home, and if you ever seen like sometimes the cable go down and you see the computer boot screen come up, and me and my friend were like, oh look, the Amiga's rebooting. It had an error with that particular memory module or whatever. Like we knew the code enough to read it, right? So back then, if you could use an Amiga, you could make your own TV channel. Now but you need a real skill to do that. Now, like I was saying with Plex Media Server, if you know how to set up a computer, install Plex on it, and get a decently better home network, and I know there are people who have Plexes where they charge people. You know, you know what I mean? Where they charge like, oh, $10 a month and you can have access to my entire library, you know? And I'm like, bro, if you get caught, that's potential $1 million worth of fines
Mm-hmm.
and jail time for those movies and shit. And they're like, but they're like, yeah, but then again, they don't really go if you use a VPN and cover yourself. Most people don't go looking, you know. So, yeah. But okay, so we hit almost an hour. So let's get to 2 or 3 of the particular topics I wanted to talk about from the grumpier, not so old man perspective. Okay, so I did a video on this one.
Found the YouTube stream. Clunk. Nice.
So here. So I grew up with this. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So there's James Earl Jones. He's 95. Could you imagine 95 years old? And he did a movie. He played still in a movie when he was 93. Right? And he was doing Darth Vader's. The last time he did Darth Vader's voice live was in that horrible episode 9, and he has provided his voice. And like for the Obi-Wan TV show, they use an application to do it, but with his supervision and permission. So
right.
He's now officially retired from doing even consulting on it, but he's made a contract where they can continue to use his voice with that application for however long they're going to do it till a statue, But so I first heard him as Vader when I was 4 years old, and I associate his voice with the scariest person I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Vader was the villain. I mean, you probably how old were you when you first saw Star Wars?
I was it was 1977. I was about 11 years old.
So you're a couple years old.
9 or 10 years old.
Yeah, I was 4 or 5, and Vader was the villain. Like every villain until I read Lord of the Rings a couple times, and Sauron is still my favorite villain since then. Vader was the villain, and James Earl Jones was his voice. And a couple years later, when Conan came out, and he was Thulsa Doom, I was like, "Oh my God, it's Darth Vader!"
Yeah.
And then I got into his whole career with. In my mind, he's always going to be Admiral Greer. If you ever read Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan novels, he was.
Yeah.
He's always going to be Admiral Greer, despite who they had playing him later in some of the bad Clancy adaptations. He Field of Dreams, and in that play he was in, Death of a Salesman? He was.
And of course we can't forget him as a bomber expert on Dr. Strangelove.
Oh,
as well.
Or there's a really, really good sports martial arts film called Best of the Best. It stars Julia Roberts' brother, Eric Roberts. He's another guy in it. And it's like a 90% realistic martial arts movie. Like there's no like wire work or whatever. These guys are taekwondo. It's about the American and the South Korean taekwondo team fighting each other, basically. And he plays the coach. And despite the fact that he clearly knows nothing about martial arts, he's just doing standard coach lines, he's actually pretty good in the role, So, yeah. But then again, he does everything so well, And now I'm 50 and he's gone. I know he's dead yet, but he's basically retired. And just like when Bruce Willis got forced off the stage because he got that medical condition. I don't know if you read about that.
Yeah, I still question as to what the validity is of any of that because it's still Hollywood. He might have had some bit of an issue, but I think most of it is, this politics stuff, I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. I'm going to claim whatever I got to claim to get out of it. And that'll be that. I'll be done.
Quite possibly. I mean, my only perspective
not to get all tinfoil hat on the whole thing, but what is the smart move? You got somebody like Bill Murray having to deal with some new actress just because he talks the way he's been talking since the beginning of his career on set. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to retire. Talk me out of it.
And then again, the other side of that is when you retreat, that's a victory for them, So
whatever. Are we winning a battle or are we trying to make entertainment? For crying out loud, I didn't realize it was a war. It's so silly. The whole thing.
Unfortunately, when your enemy declares war on you, you have to declare war back, or you're going to lose. That's the sad
I,
truth of it.
I,
With these woke Marxists, they don't care about what they destroy. They just want to destroy it so they can win. You know,
yeah,
it's
well, it's an easy win when everybody's basically going, all right, fine. It's a total piece of garbage anyway. You can have it. You know, is that winning?
to them it is because they destroy it. They don't want to. They don't want to make successful woke entertainment. That's the big. For anyone out there who ever you should really take time to read the Communist Manifesto, okay? Because Marx and Engels laid this down, okay? These woke people are the dumb stormtroopers of the actual communists and Marxists, okay? They don't want the woke people to succeed, okay? They want them to tear down the existing system so that when the Marxists come in, they can say, well, your existing system doesn't work. You have to do ours now, you know? That's
Yeah.
the
Well,
real,
there's another aspect of that history that most people might not be aware of, is that most of the libertarian movements that were being developed in communist Russia were started by the KGB as a trap.
yeah, yep.
So everybody needs to remind themselves that that might be what's happening right now in real time. That all of these people are slowly getting themselves put into a trap. All these people that think that they're winning, all the woke people in our society right now, they may think that they're winning, but maybe it's a trap because
Oh,
the
it
rest of
definitely is.
society is lining up on the other side of the fence going, we don't like any of this woke nonsense. Please stop. I mean, the society is getting bigger and bigger exponentially every day.
Yeah.
It's something I've been talking about for a while now. Is this reverse psychology? Are they going to force us to vote for the right guy finally? Because what else are they doing other than destroying stuff? They're
Well,
basically talking us into never going down this path ever again.
you say that, but see, like how do I put it? That won't, we might never go down the woke path ever again, but 20 years later there'll be another version of it. Like I was reading into this about why the Marxists chose wokeism this time around, because they realized in Western culture, and particularly U.S., that most middle class and poor people don't envy the rich for being rich; they envy the rich for being richer than them. You know what I mean? So they all want to become rich. You know, they all want to be successful. Whereas,
Yeah. They wouldn't
so
know what to do with it if they had it.
well, I mean, yes and no. But what point I'm getting at is, so they realized they couldn't break into the mindset of playing the poor and the middle class against the rich people. So they said, okay, let's pick something else, another division, and try to poke at it. And they thought they found something with this race stuff and with this trans stuff, you know. And in certain places, like where they've homogenized their population, like New York and California, where all those stupid people keep voting for the same morons, they seem like they've won. And now the rest of the country is pushing back, voting for the right people, as you would say, you know. And
Yeah, and some of those people in California are pushing back too, but it seems to be hopeless, almost as if somebody was messing with the voting figures.
well, that's why they want illegal immigration. People don't realize it. Like as more and more of the poor and middle class people wake up and don't vote for that anymore and leave those states, they want these illegal immigrants to become legal there because in their home countries where they're way more extreme with this woke leftism stuff, what they want to do here in the U.S. seems like nothing to them.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So, but it's a very insidious thing to watch your institutions like what they did with Tolkien, and then we're circling around to Lord of the Rings finally on this, right? What they did with Professor Tolkien's work, and a lot of people, like there was a scene that was in all the clips with Tamriel. If you don't, I mean, I'm assuming you at least know about the show if you haven't read the book. So, Tamriel, Galadriel, and that Palantiri that was in Numenor, that one scene in episode 4. That scene was in a lot of clips, and every one of us said that scene pretty much sums up every single thing that's wrong with this show, right? Then episode 5 comes out where they leak none of it, and as bad as you think that one scene and what we represented was, episode 5 was basically the writers of that show digging up Tolkien's grave, using his coffin as a toilet bowl, and then writing the episode. Because they literally like, not to wank out as a fan here, but one of Tolkien's Legendarium is compliant with his Catholic beliefs, right? Iluvatar is the Judeo-Christian god. The Ainur, the Maiar, and the Valar, they're angels. They follow the same rules as angels. He not that he was saying you have to be Catholic or whatever, but he wanted for his own comfort and what he thought was good. He wanted his Legendarium to be compliant, as if it could occur on a world where Catholicism also existed, right? So, long story short, Iluvatar creates souls. He's the only one with power over souls. Do you remember what happened in episode 5? Where Elrond literally goes, our souls are going to die?
I see it.
That was literally spitting and crapping in the grave of Tolkien and his religious beliefs. You know, when they had that, when they came up with that subplot of the souls are all going to die unless they go back to Valinor or steal the Dwarves' Mithril. I was like, you know, and that was when I sort of mentally, like I typed up my review and the 2 reviews. I do the lore kind of review and then the episode review. And I finally finished typing them up yesterday, and I am not motivated to record them. I'll probably do it right after we're done here just to get them out there. But 'cause I do get traction on those videos, especially the lore, you know. But you know, and now to return to something good, right? And I've been blackpilled on anything Disney since Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan was such a horrible, not just badly written, but spitting in the face of a character I love type of thing, that I said, I'm done with everything Disney, right? And then this happens. And I actually talked about it before you got on, figuring, you know, this, I don't know if you saw the announcement about Deadpool 3.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did.
So, why do I have some faith that Deadpool 3 will be a good movie? I don't know if people remember, but Deadpool, in the movies, Ryan Reynolds played him in that horrible Weapon X Wolverine movie. Right? And that was a horrible version of Deadpool. And the reason it was horrible was because the guy running that movie, the director, hated the character of Deadpool and did not like Ryan Reynolds as an actor. Now, Ryan Reynolds loves the character of Deadpool. And he said to the fans, I know this sucked. I'm going to get a Deadpool movie done that's going to be good. And he fulfilled the bond of faith with the fans and did Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. And that's why I think I'm willing to, not that I'm going to give any other Disney a shot, but I'm going to pay for it and watch Deadpool 3 because Ryan Reynolds proved that he wants this to be quality.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So,
and he must have convinced Hugh Jackman too, because he was pretty much retired.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. That was another sign that Jackman's saying, look, this isn't going to be that garbage they're making now. This is going to be something cool, you know. So he's willing to do it, you know. So. But
yeah, we shall see. You know, I at this point, I'm only in it to support the people that are still having fun with it. But as far as my interests are concerned, I'm done across the board. I've been done for a while now. I forget about Obi-Wan. I've been done since, not wholeheartedly, but I've certainly been done since the prequels.
Well, here's the Star Wars question now. So, I love the OT, right? I thought the prequels were okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just okay.
Yeah. They were okay at best.
They had some cool lightsaber fights, right?
Sure.
And some story elements I really enjoyed. I'll admit that. Okay? But I hated Kid Anakin. I just hated that. I mean, if they had, like in the first movie, I don't want to make this a breakdown of the whole prequel trilogy, but let's say Kid Anakin had stayed on Coruscant and not gone back to the planet with them, that would have made Phantom Menace, to me, almost as good as the original trilogy. Because Kid Anakin being there, that was a serious mission back there, and Kid Anakin hooping it up in space made it comedic. You know what I mean? Like, it detracted from it, right? And I always said, sorry about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, the prequels to me, and this is something I've been almost comedically kicking around with some of the other panel members on some another stream that I'm on. They broke the canon. They broke the canon of Star Wars as soon as they introduced Anakin as a citizen of Tatooine. And the logic behind that statement is Darth Vader would have recognized the planet. He would have been looking at the navigation panel and just being like, why are we heading back to my home world?
So I'll give you my fandom theory on that one in 1 minute, but let me say two things to that. The person to blame for the subpar quality of the prequel trilogy is Steven Spielberg.
Okay, fine.
Lucas,
That's certainly what George Lucas blames him for during all the documentary material. It's tongue in cheek, but
Lucas
whatever.
didn't want to direct any of those films. He wanted to
Right.
executive produce, oversee the special effects, and lead the writing team, not be the only writer, right? So he
Right.
goes to Spielberg and says, "Look, bro, we worked together for a lot of good movies. I want you to direct at least one of these films." And Spielberg goes to him, "No, man, this is your magnum opus, your baby. You got to direct this whole thing." And he convinced him to direct it. And all of the flaws in George Lucas's filmmaking came out when that happened, you know. So that to me is what I blame the prequel trilogy being average at best type of thing on Steven Spielberg. Now, the other thing, and I always said that even if he made all the mistakes he made with the prequels, if he had just followed his original concept that Anakin was like already Obi-Wan, an adult, Obi-Wan's age when they found him, and that's why he couldn't be trained properly, I think the whole film series would have worked itself out better. Even if he followed the exact same storyline in general, you know what I'm saying there? Like, in other words, Anakin didn't grow up and was a kid in the first film and a preteen or whatever in the second film. You know what I mean? He was the same age as Obi-Wan. He was 20 years old from the beginning. So him and Obi-Wan are like bros, like, you know, and friends. And Obi-Wan on the side tries to train him in the Force, like he did, like it was said in the original trilogy. You know, then the whole sequence could have worked out. But my like on what you said before about Darth Vader recognizing Tatooine, right?
Right.
I've had this fanon, like this. I know it's fanon. I get that, right? But you know, sometimes things line up almost perfectly, right? When I tell you what I'm going to tell you, go back and just rewatch the dialogue in Star Wars Episode 4 between Vader and Luke, and especially at the end when they're standing there and they could both see Luke. Okay, keep that in mind when I say this. So, there's no way. We know Luke applied to the Imperial Academy, right? We know that, okay?
Right.
We know he must have had doctor's appointment visits. We know the Emperor, Vader, and Vader, just to stay with the movies, not even counting the Black Sun, Prince Zizor, who was the sort of left-handed Palpatine. They all had these, and Tarkin. They all had these extensive intelligence networks looking for people who could be Jedi, who had the potential for it. Okay, right? There's no way Luke would have made it to adulthood with the name like Skywalker on Tatooine that the Emperor or Vader wouldn't have noticed him. You with me so far?
Yes.
Okay. So I've always had the theory that Vader came across Luke at some point, came across Obi-Wan on Tatooine, didn't know Luke was there, went to confront Obi-Wan, and found out Obi-Wan was protecting his son from him. And this isn't like right after the fall of Vader. This is maybe 10 years later when Vader's begun to regret being the Emperor's second hand. You know, when he's getting like grizzled. You know what I mean? That sort of mental approach. And he says to Obi-Wan, "Okay, you stay here on this planet. Don't help the rebellion. Protect my son. Keep him out of all of this bullshit. Don't train him. Don't teach him a single thing about the Force. And I will keep the Emperor off this planet."
Okay, that is definitely, by definition, headcanon, for sure.
Now think about that, and then go back to watch the fight between Obi-Wan and Vader. And Vader is very tentative. He's like, why? Like Vader should be aggressive in that fight, right? But he's very tentative. He knows Obi-Wan is very powerful. But like, why? And in my headcanon, he could be saying, why is he here? Like, shouldn't he be guarding? And listen to their dialogue. And at the end, both Vader and Obi-Wan look over at Luke before Obi-Wan decides to suicide. Like, why would Vader look over there? And why couldn't Vader send... I mean, Luke has a strong Force presence even then. You know what I mean? So, Vader could send him in space before he was even using the Force. Remember when he was flying the X-Wing before Obi-Wan even appeared? Vader, the Force is strong with this one. You know? And so... it's headcanon, but it made sense based on a lot of the stuff in the old EU and whatever. This, I get it. I said to when they were doing this Obi-Wan TV show, if they had gone with that angle, I would have been okay with that. That Obi-Wan and Vader had a side deal where Obi-Wan was keeping Luke away from the Emperor.
Well, yeah. Well, if that was the case, then Obi-Wan, who had only just seen a message from an R2 unit from Princess Leia, would he have taken action? Given that might have been something actually on the table, some deal between him and Vader.
I would say no.
I don't know. It seems like unnecessary acrobatics. Yes, we did see that Luke was interested in applying to the Academy, but in the original cut, we didn't know that he had in the past. Plus, also, if we're going to expand the behind the scenes stuff, then it could be that Uncle Owen took his application and never sent it, and just said, "Oh, it may have gotten lost in transmission."
I know it's not. I'm just saying. I can't put down. I was thinking about how they would not have discovered Luke Skywalker, who was being adopted by Padme's step-husband, right?
Right.
Like someone would have said, "We know Skywalker's well."
Well, that's why I say the prequels are a disaster, because they add all of this detail about Padme that we knew nothing about. It adds all this detail about what is Anakin's last name, which we also did not know.
Yep.
Right? We didn't know that it was Anakin Skywalker. We just knew that it was Anakin, right? Does Obi-Wan say Anakin Skywalker?
I think in the novels, the novelizations, I think he's called Anakin Skywalker, but I don't quote me on that 100%.
Right.
So
it's broken in a whole bunch of different ways. I know that George is just following what he had written down at some point in the past, but I don't know. A friend of mine at the time said these are going to be terrible on their face. When we first started seeing trailers for it, he's like, "You never make a prequel. It's just a bad idea to make a prequel. It's terrible because there's no jeopardy for the whole universe. There's no jeopardy. We know where this is going, and it's not like Titanic where it's what the end is going to be, because the characters we're focusing on are two characters we've never met before. So anything could happen to them in this crazy circumstance, so that you retain your jeopardy." But in Star Wars, we're tracking people that we know what their destiny is. Yep. We know what all of their destinies are. And we're not watching anything unique because we're never told what the prophecy is. We're still hearing the prophecy as hearsay. Where is the document? Read the frickin' prophecy on air to me. I want to know what the damn prophecy is. Stop screwing around. What's the prophecy? I want to know. I want to hear them read the Bill of Rights of the prophecy, so that I can track it through the storyline and see if everybody's wrong, in anime fashion. Nope, they misread the scripture. They're all wrong. And Darth Vader is a necessary evil to create Luke Skywalker. Like, I wanted that opportunity to get into that analysis on my own while watching the film. And also, we do that with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. You shouldn't have to like watch a director's commentary to understand how the prophecy worked out. Like Lucas said, for people who don't know this, Darth Vader was the chosen one. Luke was sort of the Force's way of nudging him back to the light side, to keep it simple here. And when Darth Vader defeated the Sith, and this is my big problem with the sequel trilogy, he destroyed evil in the galaxy and brought balance to the Force. People keep misunderstanding the Force is not the light side and the dark side. That's just response to a set of emotions. The Force is the living and the universal Force, and the Sith had suppressed the living Force, which is why the Jedi became moribund. And when Vader came back as Anakin, he rejected the Sith way, brought balance, destroyed the Sith, and that evil was done. There should have been no more Sith. When they brought the Sith back in the sequel trilogy, I was like, what the
Yeah.
And then here's the worst thing about it, right? So The Mandalorian comes out, and I enjoyed the first season of Mandalorian a lot. Okay, and a lot of people say, I don't know, it must suck. They like blah blah blah, because all roads lead to Disney, Star Wars, well, whatever. I kind of respect that point of view, but I'm capable of looking at things in isolation, And
that first season was really, really good. The second season was picking up the bones of the first season and running with them for as long as it could.
Yeah, and so we got the ending with Luke, right? And regardless of what you think of what Doomcock says, you can independently verify that Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy hate one another. Okay, regardless of Doomcock's, he's been giving this inside information about the Star Wars inner war or whatever for years in Civil War.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's his thing.
yeah, but you can verify that Kennedy and Favreau hate one another. There's little footage of when she walks into the room, he looks at her and walks out. Type of stuff, or vice versa. So I got the impression that okay, in this little corner, there's going to be some TV shows, an alternate continuity, not going to traipse on the big movies or whatever, and then so I had some hope with I get a couple good years of Star Wars TV shows to enjoy. Then season 1 of Boba Fett comes out, and I'm like, how could they go from something that ended so well with season 1 of The Mandalorian, right? Season 2 rather, to just total garbage fest with that show, and then Obi-Wan, and now Andor I hear is another garbage fest. Just like it's like in less than a year that any hope you had for it just burnt your soul out, So Star Wars, like now when I watch Star Wars, I watch the original trilogy and I watch Rogue One. Those are the only ones I watch now. I can't even watch the Clone Wars anymore because that got tied into the new to this Disney Star Wars crap.
Yeah, we're living through a very disappointing age. I am sure, and it's something I didn't even realize. So I just started thinking about this only recently. This notion of all of the universal monsters from the 20s and 30s suddenly becoming interlocked in their own universe in the 1940s and 50s. Now, how many horror fans who had read the original Dracula, read the original Frankenstein, they were disappointed with the feature films perhaps, but it was a brand new technology. How could you really be that disappointed? It's magic on screen, right?
Yeah.
But when Frankenstein and Dracula are going up against Abbott and Costello, it was like real hardcore horror fans must have been like, this is a travesty. What the hell are you doing to my properties? What the hell's going on here? I mean, did they have that conversation? I don't know.
I don't think people were connected enough to have that and that type of conversation. I mean, the Abbott and Costello films on their own were, unless you didn't like comedy, they were their own good phenomenon. You know what I mean? So,
I guess I didn't live through the time period. I only know them in hindsight.
Yeah. Well, neither did I, but I grew up on Abbott and Costello. Like my family were all like fans of them and stuff. So, I don't. I have never considered the original Universal horror monsters to be its own universe because they were all from. They didn't make them up. They're all like previous books. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Frankenstein and Dracula. Now they're both in the public domain and whatever.
They're all from previous books. That is the correct statement. I can tell you that the Wolfman comes from his own set of books, and so does the Mummy come from their own set of lore and books.
Yeah. Well,
not specifically, but in general,
werewolves and mummy lore have been around for centuries.
Exactly.
So the reason they wanted to make a universe out of them was because they wanted to make a profit off of a shared universe the way everyone else was.
Yeah. They were solidifying their marketplace.
Yeah, they just made a horrible mistake with that Tom Cruise film. I mean, don't get me wrong. I watch that film once in a while because the actress is insanely hot. So
right, I gotcha.
I mean, she can be my evil mummy queen anytime she wants. It's like.
Yeah, well, Brendan Fraser was doing a wonderful job with the mummy stuff. Yeah. I don't understand why they had to recap it. Maybe they fell out of faith with Brendan Fraser or something. But
yeah, I don't know either. It's when you have money on the table, it's like say they with Henry Cavill and Superman. Just make a Henry Cavill Superman movie, and you will make trillions of dollars. Just do it.
Yep. Well, yeah, you could say that with almost everything they've already done, too. It's like, just make some good Star Wars. You'll make trillions of dollars. What's the problem here?
Yeah, but even Henry Cavill, I did a video on this. I tracked all his work. Even when he does something bad, like a bad movie or a bad TV show, it makes money.
Yep.
Yep. like so if you get even a halfway decent film, like Man of Steel was okay. It wasn't great. It was, like I'm a big Superman fan. I own everything. Like I have the original Superman serials. I have, everything Superman's ever done visually. I have at this point. I finally tracked it all down, and there are at least 10 other Supermen I would rather watch than Man of Steel in terms of the plot. Right? But
gotcha.
But Henry Cavill, from his charisma as Superman, is in the top 3 to me. And I'm not a straight guy. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I find him attractive. I'm saying he has the physical body presence and the way to play that humility. He can play Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, that's just lost money. And now the rumor, of course, is that they want to go with him as Superman because this new guy, what's his name from Warner, uh, Zaslav, whatever. He realizes
Yeah.
Henry Cavill is money and wants to make Henry Cavill Superman films. But that all being aside, so we're hitting almost an hour and a half, and I want to do one last topic with you, and this is probably very short, but you're probably the same thing when I heard this stuff, and this is a almost purely political topic, but it relates to the media. Okay.
Okay.
So when we were growing up, and we heard about the threat of nuclear war from the Soviet Union, you remember the media was like China syndrome, and you're all gonna die from nuclear bombs, and you all have to have like stockpile iodine tablets in your basement and stuff like that. The horror of like no one thought that nuclear war, even a limited nuclear war, was a good thing, right?
Right.
For the past few months with this Ukraine situation, and again, not commenting for anyone and Mama Karen's, Mama Susan's. No, I'm not choosing sides in the Ukraine fight. I'm just talking about the media, talking about nuclear warfare here. I find it absurd how gung-ho the media is, particularly the left-wing media, to be promoting nuclear warfare. To the point...
Is that really a thing going on right now? I've
you been
completely
paying
lost
attention?
track of the news.
You really... Like, I was kind of loosely following... There's a guy I watch called Styx Hexenhammer. I don't know if you've watched any of his videos or not. He had a lot of political commentary. And it didn't quite hit home to me until he did a video, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago. If I could find it, I'll share it down below. Where he was talking about one of the generals, maybe General Petraeus, who was one of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, one of the past presidents, talking like nuclear warfare as if it's a viable option and in a straight face, like to the media about it. Like, not that it was like, it's something we should avoid, or like they weren't asking him about the mechanics of it. They're asking him about the viability of it as a tactic. And so I started paying some attention, and I watched like constantly like the nuclear warfare mongering going on in the media, and I'm like, and some of you are my age and they're doing this. I'm not saying. I'm more objective about it. I mean, I understand they're a weapon, used in an appropriate way, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're worrying about carbon emissions. We're worrying about gas-powered cars destroying the atmosphere. One atomic weapon in our current atmosphere would screw up so much, not to mention bust down all kinds of communication grids, perhaps produce all sorts of electrical activity in the atmosphere that'll totally create new storm systems and so on. I mean, God, why did we even make the movie War Games? The computer learned quicker than these people.
Well, that's if you take like loosely speaking here, like a multi-megaton device and explode in such a way to be an EMP rather than a device that releases energy in physical destructive format.
Yeah, well, I don't know enough about modern nuclear weapons to even make a say on this. All I have is Hollywood definitions of nuclear weapons. I can guarantee you that the thing is dangerous beyond reason, for sure.
Well, because they're really big explosives with long-term side effects. I mean, that's the reality of
it. It's not just an explosive, kids. It's basically an atom smasher, okay? It's unleashed in quantity.
No, but you can use non-nuclear means to split atoms too, which is much harder. Well, you can do with lasers and stuff.
Gliders and stuff, such. Yeah.
But so I'm not afraid of nuclear weapons as if there's some magical like super bomb or whatever. I just think of the number, 1 kiloton, 1 megaton, whatever. I mean, they can make conventional explosives that are as powerful as Hiroshima was now, So
yeah,
my point of this though is like the media is talking about it like as if nuclear war with Russia will be a good thing because they want the ratings. That's the gist of it.
Whatever. At this point, maybe we'll get Deadpool and Deadpool 3 before this happens, but maybe not. Maybe it'll be in the theater when it happens.
Yeah, well, we'll get to the end of Deadpool 3, and then they'll tick off Putin enough to start World War 4, 3.5.
Yeah, 4, 3.5, 3 3/4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
I mean, all the other wars between World War 3 that involved millions and millions of dead weren't world wars. Just it's like
Yeah. Yeah, God, how many police actions did we have between Vietnam and Afghanistan, and then Desert
how is
Storm,
what's
and then
going on in the Middle
Afghanistan
East not a
2, and
world war right now with the amount of people being killed in that grinder?
yeah,
But so yeah, you got my perspective, and I think you're the similar. Like we grew up with the horrors of warfare on that scale, and now they're talking about it like it's a video game in the mainstream media. It's like,
during the mid '90s, I dated a woman who was old enough, my senior, to have been part of air raid drills in elementary school.
wow.
Okay, and she remembers being terrified as a little girl underneath her desk. So, yeah, this is a very real thing. I can't believe that this is even being speculated on. Most of 20th century science fiction is based on the idea that this will be a disaster if we go down this road.
Oh yeah, a full exchange of nuclear weapons. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, even a minor exchange of a handful between a couple of nations would be so devastating to the environment. And yeah, bad idea, guys. Bad idea. Just bad idea.
It's crazy people. But so that was the gist of what I wanted to cover on the broadcast. And if you haven't listened, we got the tone of it pretty well. The grumpy, not so old men here, trying to get guys in this age category talking about between the franchises and politics. Not so much the political issue itself, but the way the media almost as a fandom now, if you think of it, how things have changed over the past 10, 20, 30 years, like almost totally inverting perspectives or like what the stories are about or how the media does stuff. And that's kind of the theme I want for this show. Now, I might aim for, because these times less competitive and whatnot, to do grumpier old, not so old men maybe every 2 weeks and fill in a different stream in between or something like that. I don't know. Well, I'll talk with people afterwards. Anything you want to bring up, Stephen?
Subject-wise, no. I just do a little bit of simping for some of the things I'm going to be in. Roman of the Empire is doing an extensive deep dive tomorrow with about the book, early black and white feature film, and the full color feature remake of The Thing. Started off as a book called Who Goes There?
Yep.
And became the legendary John Carpenter film that we all know and love. So we're going to be doing a deep dive on that with a few other guys on the panel. I think we're going to have Daniel and Blair to Blair are going to be there, and we're going to be kicking it around. Come join the chat. Ask us the difficult questions, and we'll desperately try to piss Roman off on air.
And I'll be in the chat with plenty of information about these movies and people out there. I did a review of the novella Who Goes There with all the stories, not just the Who Goes There, which is The Thing. Eventually, I'm going to review all the movies, including the crappy 2011 one, and the movie people keep forgetting about. In the 1970s, they wanted to do another remake of Who Goes There. I don't know if the Hammer Films did it or one of the executive producers from Hammer did it, but the film is called Horror Express. It stars Christopher Lee, Peter Sellers, Telly Savalas, and a couple other big name actors in there. And
wow,
it's better than you ever look for it, Steven, if you haven't seen it. You will be surprised at how good a horror movie it is.
It's called Terror Express.
Horror Express.
Horror Express. I got to bring that one up. I got to find that. Yeah.
Yep.
I'd be curious because those are some heavy hitters. Peter Sellers, Christopher Lee. Wait, Telly Savalas for real?
Telly Savalas was in it. Yeah. Matter of fact, I will call up the IMDb for it so you can see what we can see. Horror.
And how well does it track the original book? Does it track new material in the book?
Because they didn't license it, they had to be very loose about it. There's an alien that crashes, that escapes, and you're dealing with the alien, but the alien's on a train, not in the Arctic, and like they couldn't be too close to it. You know what I mean? Well, for instance, here, is this big enough? Let me zoom in here. So Christopher Lee, can you see now?
Yeah, I can see it. I can see
Peter
it.
Cushing, Telly Savalas, Albert. I know who that Albert Di Mendoza. I watch enough Italian films. I know who these people are as well. You know, but his IMDb for it.
Yeah, did that say in a train in 1906?
Yeah.
China?
Basically, an anthropologist and his rival anthropologist, they find a frozen prehistoric ape, which it turns out it's some sort of alien life form that crashed there. And what it does is it sort of absorbs the minds of its prey and it inhabits their body.
Okay.
Which is what the thing basically does. If you've ever read the novella, you've read.
Yeah, I just recently reread it.
Yeah. So, and it's better than you would ever think it would be. George Regal is in it. I mean, if you've watched the Hammer films or Italian horror films, you know who a lot of these people are. Who I'm just scrolling past. You know, but
yeah, it never been my wheelhouse horror. I never really understood it as an entertainment form. I was like, why do you want to be scared? But I am familiar enough with it as an adult to recognize some of these names and some of these company names as well.
If there's,
that's an interesting way to approach the property.
Yeah. There are certain actors, Telly Savalas, when he plays a crazy person, like he does in The Dirty Dozen, he plays a crazy person in this film, he is one of the best crazy person. He's right up there with, what's his face? Tim played Darkness. He played the original It clown.
I know who you're talking about. From Rocky Horror Picture Show and Clue.
Clue, Congo. Those are two of the best crazy people actors ever. But anyway, so about the thing, even maybe from now on tomorrow you won't have time to watch it, but it's worth watching. It's as good a production as the other two. Now, there are some flaws with it, like anything else, but all three of the films have their flaws. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But I love the original thing, the pure sci-fi one. I love the Horror Express. I love John Carpenter's thing. John Carpenter's my favorite horror director, so I could
actually see John Carpenter seeing this movie in his youth and going, "Oh, we could do better than this, guys."
Yeah, I could.
And that might be
John
the kernel
Carpenter
that
has
gave him
seen
the
Horror
inspiration.
Express. I don't know if he mentioned it as he watched. He's a Christopher Lee Peter Cushing fanboy, so he'd seen the movie, but
yeah,
and so
yeah, I didn't even know this movie existed. I can't believe it's that close to the material either. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
just goes to show you.
I like to get films that people should have watched that, never. Generally speaking, any horror movie Christopher Lee is in is worth watching. I'll put it that way. So.
Yeah, any time where the artists are obviously taking the property seriously, that's what really makes these things magical. Is that everybody in staff is taking the property seriously, like they should.
Christopher Lee is such a good actor that even when he's doing like a bad horror film like Howling 2, he knows when to camp it up and go for it. Like he knows he's in a bad film, and he's saying this is good, this is horrible. I'm just gonna fucking go for it. Just go for it. But he always in the good ones he always does a masterwork on it. Anyway, we just not trying to sign off for 10 minutes. So you're doing you'll be on Roman and John Save the World tomorrow. So maybe in either next week or the week after, maybe back on with me here. We'll talk offline about maybe what your schedule is for this. Hopefully my D&D session won't run late every week.
Yeah. I have a few other things coming up. I don't have the times in front of me, but I've got something on Friday. I've got something on Saturday. As Halloween starts to kick in, I'm starting to get onto some other horror movie panels. So, there'll be a lot coming in the near future. I'll be broadcasting about it.
I was listening to the anime show you did last night, and I had to cut out after like about 45 minutes because I had to go do something in real life. But you didn't get to it. You were 2 movies away from one of my movies I wanted to mention some stuff about. But anyway, because matter of fact, are you into Japanese folklore at all?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so the Princess Kaguya Studio Ghibli film, right? That is from the legend from an old folk tale about basically the Moon Princess, the Rabbit Moon Princess.
Yes, it is.
And that is how the story of Kaguya and Naruto came about. I don't know if you ever read Naruto or not.
No, I know, but I've mentioned, and I'm sure you heard me mention, if I didn't mention it on Raquel's stream last night, I certainly have mentioned it in the past, that anime has this way of using their ancient folklore
Yep.
to inform their current media landscape. So, of course, Naruto is part of that. Of course, in the animated series Seven Samurai, they have a guy who's literally the Prince and the Peach, right?
Yeah.
Where he goes to conquer the evil and recover all the peaches or something, some nonsense like that. And of course, Goku is the Monkey King, the Stone Monkey. Yeah, and Journey into the West is a strong aspect in Japanese lore as well because
Japanese,
they
Chinese.
inherited from
Yeah.
Chinese.
Like
So
what?
yeah, that's what I love about anime is that it's almost living mythology
Yeah.
as storytelling.
Maybe our next show we can talk about that in depth because Naruto is probably one of my 5 favorite franchises, and there's so much that Kishimoto puts into there between folklore he pulls out, plus he like keep this short. 'Cause again, we're trying to end the stream. When Kishimoto submitted Naruto, his original concept of it to Shonen Jump, he wanted to hit Dragon Ball was his favorite manga, not Dragon Ball Z, but Dragon Ball, and he wanted to do an homage to Dragon Ball. And he came up with a story about a lonely young fox who turns into a little boy because he wants to make friends, goes into the village and becomes an apprentice ramen chef and meets a rival. And that's the story. And that's the story of how Naruto came to be because Naruto was like a ramen noodle, basically, the name. And
Wow.
they loved the concept of it that it was going to end in a giant ramen cook-off between him and his rival, who became Sasuke in the anime. And they said to him, we kind of like this concept a lot with the ramen and the rivalry and this lonely fox who wants to make friends and all that. But you got to kind of jazz it up a little. So Kishimoto said, I love 1980s ninja movies and giant monster movies, so I'll just throw them in there. And that's how Naruto came to be.
Writing rooms, gotta
then,
love it.
But then he added in all the tales of Jiraiya, the toad from that was a folk tale and a kabuki play that became a series of novels in like the 1800s. That's where Jiraiya Tsunade and Orochimaru come from.
Right.
Kaguya, we just talked about where that came from. He added in the heavenly samsara from Buddhism as part of the whole thing. He just thrown so much stuff into that you could deep dive into for hours.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest parts about anime in general.
Yep.
All of the stories that we're watching, even the most modern ones, they are almost infinitely deep because the artists are going and digging deep into their own lore, and it's visible on the surface. All of it is visible on the surface.
And they do it in a respectful way. This is what I was when
Yes.
Journey to the West came up. Do you think, in China, Lord of the Rings is actually a popular book, right? China doesn't suppress the book. They suppress movies at the big coast and whatever. But books they are fairly loose about, right? Because the morals in Lord of the Rings isn't telling you to overthrow the Chinese government. It's telling an old story, right? So they don't really suppress it as much as they do some other stuff. So China would never let them do a show like this and disrespect the Lord of the Rings as a work. Like if we did that with Journey to the West, could you imagine if they wokeified Journey to the West?
I know, dude. Yeah. It's always fun to do the reverse, to flip these things on their ear as an example and an argument of the example. Because, God, if we did half the things that they did to some of their beloved properties, imagine a boy version of Thelma and Louise.
Mm-hmm.
They would never.
I thought we saw that with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We've already done it. Ha, 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 ha. So Thelma and Louise is a gender flip on Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid? Yeah. Why not? Sure. Of course it is. Yeah. Oh, my God. It's such a mess, Matt. What are we going to do about all of this, guys? I mean, seriously.
Well,
that's really where I focus my attention now is what are we going to do about this? How do we even survive all of this? And it's by going into these older movies and showing the younger generation that we've done it better before. We did it better before we were even born, and we're old coots. So, yeah, they've been doing it better for a whole bunch of years, and now this is open destruction. We need to make it visible to them that this is open destruction of quality.
Yeah.
And quality is a thing. It's real. Quality is a real thing. You can feel it. You pick up some new toy, you could feel the quality in your hand.
Oh, yeah. And well, you saw the. I think you were in one of the when I typed out. There are no real new stories since these old stories just kept being told for thousands of years. Do you know why
Mm-hmm.
these stories get? Why the Epic of Gilgamesh gets remade in some other version? Why the stories of King Arthur get revisited and told in other versions?
Right.
Why Beowulf is a resonant story? Because they were good. They resonate with the local people. Someone reads that and makes a new story on their own culture based on it, and the good stuff keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
When you take the good stuff and you go back and subvert it, you're not making more. You're taking what exists and making it less.
Yep.
Diversity
Yep.
isn't getting the same pot of soup and giving it to 500 more people. It's getting a much bigger pot of soup. We put more stuff in, so there's even more stuff in the soup. You know?
Right. Yeah. Do you remember the Leonardo DiCaprio version of Romeo and Juliet?
Kind of, yeah.
They did a version of Romeo and Juliet that was teetering right on the edge of basically being a contemporary rap gangster movie.
Yeah.
And it worked. I mean, it didn't work entirely for me, but it worked for a general audience. And I would challenge the current woke community to do such things with their properties. If they're going to do it, then take this damn thing seriously. Take a much older property and resurrect it. Do a woke version of King Arthur's court and the gathering of the Round Table, and take it totally seriously. You could bring your message that way in a heartbeat, and we'd actually respect it.
I've said this multiple times about Lord of the Rings of Prime. Okay, if they said outright, we're going to do a woke version of the show. We're not saying this is an adaptation of Tolkien's actual work. We're not saying this for the general audience. We're just going to do this for our woke peoples. I would have been okay with it because it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be an adaptation. You know, and that's not what they're doing. They're deliberately trying to say that this is, this reimagining is how it should have been or whatever. You know?
Right.
But so we've been trying to end the show for half an hour now. And
all right, let's actually do it this time.
We just keep going because we're grumpy as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore. You know?
That's right.
Yeah. And you will respect our authority, to quote the Cartman. You know.
Tate.
Authority. You know. So Steven has said he'll be on Joe and Roman's. He's a regular on Joe Roman's podcast, and you got to follow him because he does a lot of little streamers like me. He comes in to help us all out. So I will be doing. I'm going to claim this 11 o'clock Wednesday night slot for hopefully an hour to hour and a half normally, as a slot I will put something in. It might not. I don't think Grumpy will, because as much as Steve and I could probably gripe about everything. I don't want to just gripe about everything every week, So
yeah, well, we'll definitely diversify this.
Yeah, like
this
maybe
podcast.
Next week if you want to come on again, we could just do something less grumpier and more, Naruto or something like that. Just
everything's so interconnected. It's very easy to slide it back to the subject of what's going on here, kids. Yeah. Really, that's really what we're saying is what is going on here, kids? What's going on? Yeah. This is no good for the children.
Yeah, but so I will. So the Grumpier Old Not So Old Men show will be reoccurring in this slot, maybe alternating with some other stuff in between. This way, I with my channel, I don't want to be known as a bitch fest. I just don't want that. That's why I stopped reviewing House of the Dragon. I haven't, because it's gotten worse and worse every episode to me. Not to believe it. I want to do I want to do mostly positive with some talking about negative stuff. But I want to try to be positive with my content. So
indeed, and I will back you up on that because I am sick and tired of the Grump Fest. I'm sick and tired of the Angst Fest. There's a better way to go about this, where old wisdom is applied to new ideas, and we'll show some of the new ideas because there are new ideas out there to look at, and of course. Resurrecting the old ideas as example and proof that it's all been done before and it's been done better.
What was that thing from New Battlestar Galactica? It's happened before and will happen again. Do you remember that line?
Well, that's another part. That's a part of the whole Battlestar Galactica universe is that it's cyclical.
Yeah, but the new Battlestar Galactica universe. But
yes, sort of the old one too, because Earth is going through. Eventual AI development and so on. So there is that cyclical disaster. of even the original Battlestar Galactica being a
No,
cautionary tale about
that was
robots
their
and AI.
tie-in to the original Battlestar Galactica story, but
Right.
the actual nuance of original Battlestar Galactica can't occur in the same universe as MBSG. Like back in
Right.
the fandom days, we really I'm not as up on it as I used to be, but I used to be able to tell you to the dime like how like the Galactica traveled 17.2 kilometers in that maneuver, turned 362 degrees. Like that's how much I used to know about that show, the original show.
Right. Okay.
And I once figured out like the timeline of Battlestar Galactica in like how many thousands of years they were traveling with their FTL and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, so I think that's what we had a good show, especially once we got it. We had that rough start with the delay and whatever. We'll try to improve that next week for those of you who might listen to this on the repeat. I will use this particular stream to fine tune, maybe pick up Streamlabs. So I'm going to say I'm Matt from Unbearable 73 with my guest and fellow Grumpier, not so old man, Stephen Ransom. Have a nice day, and I am out of here. Or we are.
Peace out.